everyone, this is Melanie and Laura with A Creatively Crafted Life, and welcome back to our channel. This week's card, we're going to be doing a New Year's card. So for those of you who maybe didn't get a chance to send out Christmas cards or holiday cards, and maybe you don't usually send out Christmas card, a New Year's card is kind of a nice alternative to that. So we thought we'd do a little bit of a take on that. So Melanie's going to walk you through a little bit of that.
So today's card is inspired by New Year's, especially New Year's Eve.
And that makes us think of things that are glittery and sparkly and very festive.
So what I took from that is, let's use some Finetec Pearlescent watercolor paints. And I was feeling a little lazy because, you know, it's like a week before Christmas, 2 weeks before New Year's, and I got to get these cards out the door, so I needed something quick and simple. So bring out the paint splatters. So all I'm doing here is just taking some clean water, placing it in the wells of the paint pans and getting it nice and soupy wet so that when you take the paintbrush and mop up some of that, when you go to splatter, it gets those nice, you know, drops all over your cardstock.
And this paint's really great because it has that really nice pearlescent effect, and on the black paper it looks beautiful.
Exactly. And it's fun to use a dark color.
Right.
You know, we're always using white. It's kind of, you know, so let's switch it up. And what better than like a New Year's Eve inspired card. So here I just took another panel of black cardstock. Actually, I think this might be the card base. And I'm just applying some Versamark along the edge. And it doesn't need to be over the whole card because we're going to take that other panel and lay it over top. But what I'm then going to do is take some Stampendous, I think it's called a Spoonful of Midnight. And it's kind of like embossing powder with chunky glitter all mixed in.
Now that's a party in a box right there.
Yeah. And I will warn you, this can go everywhere.
Yeah.
As glitter.
It looks really big and chunky, and, you know, as glitter does go
Exactly.
everywhere.
Yeah. Only now it's even bigger.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things that's nice in a small amounts. I don't think I would do the whole card,
yeah.
you know, base in this.
That's definitely one of those little goes a long way kind of things. It looks really great just all the way around the edge, especially because you're going to put the other panel on top of it.
Right, so you're going to see even less than what's showing right now. Because the glitter's quite chunky and we're only using Versamark ink to hold it, I felt that it was easier, or it was more effective to heat from beneath so that the embossing powder had a chance to melt a little bit to hold on to those chunky glitter bits before moving over to the top of the top of the card. And it does get a little warm, I'm going to let you know. And because it's dark, it's hard to see what's melted and what hasn't melted. So the best thing I could say is, you know, just go over it and then, you know, rub your hand lightly over top of it. If the stuff is still moving, you know, apply a little bit more heat to it. So now I'm just really making sure that the embossing powder is nice and melted and that stuff is adhered to it. Oh, and so you remember the card we did a few...
Right.
Yeah, with all the glitter and shine? I think I must foil all the things.
You have the foiling bug now?
I do. You know, I've got quite the collection, so it's about time that I start. So what I learned from that card was that the Deco Foil pen makes kind of a great distressed edge,
right? But
not so much for solid. And I thought, well, that would be a great way to almost frame the sentiment. And the sentiment is just something I printed up on Word. I think we'll include a copy of the document in the blog post if you're interested. Again, it was just typed up in Word, nothing fancy or special. And I did print it on just regular printer paper.
Right.
A couple of reasons for that was I thought it would absorb the ink a little better than a cardstock, especially if it's got a coating on it, so that hopefully the foil would adhere a little bit better.
Yeah.
So we're just going to glue that panel down onto a white piece of cardstock. And the reason why I did that was I just thought it needed a little bit of differentiation between the card base. So a little bit of contrast basically. And then I'm just using some foam tape, you know, because we got to pop everything up. And meanwhile, the laminator is running the piece of what do you call it? The printed printed sentiment with the foil through it.
So with the toner ink, that should stick the foil onto the sentiment, right?
Yeah. My understanding is toner's got a little bit of plastic in it. And so when you reheat it, it's what causes the toner to stick.
It adheres to itself, kind of.
Exactly.
Well, like to the plastic.
Yeah.
Right?
So because I printed it on just regular copy paper, it's a little bit thin, and with a black cardstock base, I thought I would just glue it on some white cardstock just to make it a little bit more opaque so you didn't see the black through it and give it a little bit more stability. That's all I'm doing here. An interesting thing, I actually went to a show once, and the lady who was demonstrating her stamp line only ever stamps on printer paper.
Really?
Yeah. She says it's dirt cheap, so if she doesn't like the way something works out, she just chucks the piece of paper and doesn't think about it. And then she glues it with a glue stick and places it on top of a cardstock and then makes her card from there.
So does she color the images that way?
Yeah, I don't think she uses something like the Copic markers.
Right.
But, you know, if you used something like pencil crayons
right.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once she glues it on the cardstock, you can't even tell.
That's interesting.
So now, of course, as I said, I need to foil all the things, so why stop there? I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could use fun foam and see if we could foil that up. So I just applied some of this Be Creative Sookwang tape on the back. I bet you if you had the stuff that already had the adhesive on, you probably wouldn't need to do this step.
Right.
And then I just ran it through the die cut machine. Now, it was a little thick. Right? So I did cut on both ends. So I did it on one side and then I flipped it over and cut it out the other way. And it still struggled a little bit.
Do you think that you would have needed to run it through again, or do you think that would have made a difference?
It might have, or even if I had used like the precision base plate might have helped, or even another shim might have helped as well.
Right.
But there's stars, there's straight lines, so it was pretty easy to just trim it out.
Right. Yeah.
So once I had all of that, you peel the adhesive backing off. Now the adhesive backing in this case is not going to be to glue it down onto the card, it's to apply the foil. And I'm just using the scrap foil that I had left over. And all I'm going to do is just apply some pressure and just transfer this across onto the star.
And that's a really good way to make your product go a long way, right? You've got scraps. This is just really another scrap just because it's not paper, but it's still a piece of scrap. So.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you might, if you looked really close, you might be able to see some of the lines as a result of it. But, you know, I just think the texture just adds a little bit of interest to it too. And what was really cool when these were done, the die itself, if you look at the edges, it's got the stitched lines.
Right.
So they look like they were actual, like, quilted little puffy, stuffed stars.
Yeah, they totally do. Once you take the paper off of them, if you look at that there, it really does look like it's quilted.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because it has the little stitch edge on it.
Yeah, so this is a super cheap embellishment for those of you that are looking for, you know, an economical, you know, kind of option. Of course, you'd have to buy the foil, but you don't need a laminator, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
For those of you that are you know, opposed or not interested in purchasing an laminator.
So you think the fun foam that already has the sticky back would also work, right?
I think it would. I mean, to be honest, I haven't tried it, but I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Unless maybe it was super poor quality, you know, but, you know, if you've got it, why not try it?
Yeah.
So I did have a little bit of issue with the getting the foil to adhere in the corners. So I just thought using a bone folder would help. So again, it's just about applying pressure and to get that into the corners.
Yeah, and they look great. I mean, I can't see the line. I know it's different when you look at up really close. But again, it's what we always say, right? People aren't going to pick apart your cards.
Well, and the foam has a little bit of texture in itself anyways.
Right.
So, yeah. And then I'm just using some Tombow Aqua glue to glue those down. Nothing fancy here, just a little bit of glue. You could use glue dots if that's what you have. I just like this glue. For some reason, I feel that it works really well with paper. And I think I used 3 of them on this one. Because, of course, you know, the rule of 3s, or rather odd numbers, it always looks more aesthetically pleasing to have an odd number than an even. And that's the card for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And please Leave comments below. Let us know what you think. Are you going to give out New Year's Eve cards or New Year's cards? We'd like to hear if you're going to give this a try. We hope you enjoy your holidays. Happy crafting, and we'll see you in the new year.